up, Tide fans? Stacey Blackwood here with Tide Talk Live. We have a great episode up here in just a second with On3's Joseph Hastings as we talk Alabama recruiting. We're going to recap last weekend's official visits, look ahead to next weekend's official visits, and talk so much more about the 2023 recruiting class for the Crimson Tide. So stay tuned and make sure you hit that like button, hit that notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and hit that subscribe button. All right, we are joined now by On3's Joseph Hastings, who covers recruiting for BamaOn3. Joseph, first of all, I really appreciate you joining us. I know this has been a crazy busy month for you, and it's just going to get busier. But I really appreciate you taking time to join us. And so, how things going for you?
Stacey, it's going good on my end. Just trying to pace myself. We were talking about it before the show started here. Just trying to pace myself and take it kind of day by day because yes, it's hectic. Alabama, if they're not hosting, 9 official visitors on campus, they're hosting camps. If they're not hosting camps, then they're getting some surprise unofficial visitors, and they're sending out offers. So there's just a lot to track down. But just continuing to pace myself and keep up with it. Hopefully it results in good news on Alabama's end. They've definitely put themselves in some good positions with prospects who have visited. It's been a big month so far, and got another big weekend coming up.
That's right. And speaking of big, news broke this afternoon. We were kind of talking on Twitter, and then all of a sudden, the news of Peter Woods
Mhm.
was released. Just talk about that. He's going to be making his announcement next month. Just talk about where Alabama sits with him, real quick, and how surprised you were about his announcement date.
Yeah, so Peter Woods is going to be committing on July 8th at 6:45 Central Time. He's got a top four of Alabama, Clemson, Florida, and Jackson State, which is interesting because his previous top four had those three schools plus Oklahoma. Jackson State offered late. He talked about the appeal of HBCUs, so decided to take Oklahoma out and put them in there. But look, this is Alabama all the way. It kind of has been for quite some time. It feels like I've visited with Peter twice this year. I actually got to spend a couple of hours with him earlier this year, and just being around him, being around the program, there's just a sense of Alabama has built the relationships necessary here to land a commitment of this magnitude. It kind of resembles the Jeremiah Alexander recruitment in a sense. Both prospects from Thompson High. Big time defensive linemen. Clemson is one of the top schools in their recruitment, and they're committing on July 8th. Jeremiah committed on July 8th. 2021. Peter Woods will do the same thing on July 8th, 2022. But Alabama should feel really confident here. I know there was some buzz around Clemson, but look, that's kind of what happens after official visits. You start to hear buzz regarding the school a kid visited because unless a program is just unprepared, which is not the case with the Clemsons, the Georgias, the Alabamas of the world, they're going to make a strong impression on these kids. These are elite programs with elite coaching staffs and facilities. They're going to make a strong impression, but I'm not too concerned about that. By the time that July 8th commitment rolls around, I expect there to be a lot of buzz regarding Alabama.
Yeah, that's obviously great news for Alabama fans. Peter Woods is one of the most dominant defensive linemen in this class. And speaking of Thompson High School, On3 also had a prediction come in for his teammate Tony Mitchell to Texas A&M. How's that looking right now? His recruitment.
Yeah, so the difficult thing about predictions is that you're kind of predicting where you believe they would wind up if they committed today, and you're also trying to predict where they would wind up, when they sign in December or sign in February. So that's the balance you're trying to find. And if Tony Mitchell was to commit today, he's probably committing to Texas A&M. So I would agree with that prediction. I believe A&M has the lead right now, and this has kind of been a little bit of a weird one. Tony Mitchell is not an Alabama native. He's not like Peter Woods, didn't grow up a fan of Alabama. He made that very clear to me when I spoke with Mitchell, back in March. He's like, I'm not a native of Alabama. I'm not bound to the state. It's not guaranteed I'm staying in the state. And he's kind of shown that with the schools that he's considering, Georgia, or Oregon and Texas, and then also A&M, of course, and Florida. He says he's from Lakeland, Florida, and obviously Florida's had a good history of recruiting in that area. So yeah, his has been an interesting recruitment. I don't know where he winds up, to be honest with you, because he's changed so much. He committed to Tennessee before he was even in high school. Then he decommitted less than a year later, and then he started to trend toward Alabama. And then Florida had a little bit of a peak, and then A&M now. So you just never know where this recruitment's going to go. And there's obviously a lot of factors involved there. But yeah, if he was to commit today, I would say it would be A&M.
Yeah, and his is going to be the most fascinating, really, of some of the in-state players. And this in-state class is just loaded with talent. I don't ever remember a class being this loaded. I've been following recruiting real closely for about 15 years now, and
Mhm.
this is as deep a class as I remember in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, so I haven't followed Alabama recruiting specifically too much. I've covered different programs, but just looking at the talent this year, I believe per the On3 consensus, like 12 of the top 100 players in the country are from Alabama. So there's just a lot of prospects there, and there's been some Bama fans who've been concerned about recruiting. Why is it not kind of picked up in a sense? Why are there only 4 commitments? But look, at the end of the day, uh, 3 of the top 15 players in Alabama are committed. 2 are to the Crimson Tide and Jaleel Hurley and Jan Pierre. And then the third one, Christopher Vizina, didn't even have an offer from Alabama. So it's not like they're striking out on their guys and these kids are committing elsewhere right now. Alabama's in a good spot. Wait for July, wait for August. That's really going to determine what this class ultimately looks like.
Yeah, and now I want to kind of shift to this last weekend when Alabama seemingly hosted every five-star prospect in the country. Just there was so many high quality prospects in town. I want to talk about the offensive linemen that were in town. There were so many good ones. Caden Proctor, the guy from Finland. You talk about the guy
Mhm.
from Tuscaloosa who just a couple miles down the road takes a visit.
Yeah.
Francis, I'm not sure how to say his last name, was in
Oh,
town. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, just talk about this offensive line class, especially the targets that Alabama has, and who you think they might end up with in regards to the offensive line.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. They brought in those 4 guys that you mentioned there, but last week they also got in a guy named Raymond Pulido, and he's a player that some Alabama fans may not know too much about. He got offered in March. His recruitment has kind of flown under the radar. He's from Apple Valley, California, but then transferred to St. John Bosco and has really picked up some momentum. Schools are starting to take notice of them. I'm hearing Alabama really likes Pulido. They like his size, athleticism, his length. They think he's a guard with a tackle like skill set. So they think highly of him, and he's one to pay attention to. He's kind of flown a little bit under the radar, but he's one to watch out for. But yeah, you mentioned Caden Proctor. I don't think Alabama lands Caden, but he is one of their top targets. It's so hard going into the state of Iowa, and especially his teammate Xavier Nwankpa signed there in the 2022 class. Iowa is fairly good with developing
Yeah.
offensive linemen. Tristan Wirfs, obviously the most recent example, and it's close to home. So it feels like that's going to be a tough pull, but you never know. It's Alabama, and you just can't rule them out with anybody. I would probably favor their chances with Francis Maligoa, the 5-star offensive lineman out of IMG Academy, more right now, than their chances with Proctor. And Maligoa, look at it. Look, Alabama has signed J.C. Latham, Evan Neal, and Tyler Booker. They just continue to land 5-star offensive linemen out of IMG Academy. They're really trying to emphasize that to Maligoa. His parents felt really comfortable with the visit. They thought the presentation was strong. The development at Alabama is really appealing to them. And the production into the NFL, and not worrying necessarily about short-term benefits that a school may provide, more so the long-term benefits, which is the kind of the message that Nick Saban gave to them. So I'm keeping a close eye on that one, although Tennessee appears to be trending there. And you mentioned Olaus Alonen out of Finland. This trip was important because he took 3 previous visits to Tuscaloosa, but this is the first one in which his family was there. And by all accounts, they liked it. I even saw that his mother was singing at Nick Saban's house. It was just kind of a family atmosphere. It was a fun time. They enjoyed the presentation of it. And he's going to be one to watch out for. Just that Ohio State visit on June 24th to 26th is one we're paying close attention to. We think it could be an Alabama-Ohio State battle. And then Wilkin Formby, look, he's in Tuscaloosa, like you said. His quote to me was that he made a long 3-mile drive to Alabama for his visit. Obviously, his grandfather played there under Coach Bear Bryant. So, there's obviously some things going in favor of Alabama and some things not going in their favor, such as the fact that Ole Miss offered in June 2021, whereas Alabama offered in January 2022. Are they going to be able to make up that kind of lost time that they had there in terms of not offering him sooner? Will that factor into his decision? He's supposed to commit sometime in mid-July. We'll see. Doesn't have a decision date set up just yet, but he's another prospect who's going to be committing soon here. So, yeah, the offensive line, it could be either really, really good or kind of like below average. I would probably lean more so towards saying that it's an above average class, and they're able to land some of their top guys in this cycle.
Yeah, and speaking of the guys, those offensive linemen blocked for, they also had Richard Young in, the 5-star running back from Florida, just a really talented kid. He seems to be leaning Alabama. What's your thoughts there on Richard Young and his recruitment?
Yeah, Richard Young's recruitment is has been a little bit unpredictable at times. Ohio State was long a school that he was really considering. He had taken multiple visits to Columbus last year after the COVID dead period had ended, and seemed really high on them. It seemed like it was going to be Alabama, Ohio State, and then Ohio State lands Mark Fletcher, and kind of seems to dip off. He cancels a previously scheduled official visit with the Buckeyes. And then some schools are kind of entering the mix. Like Oregon is really surging for him. He scheduled an official visit to Notre Dame, which kind of came out of left field. But the one constant in his recruitment has been Alabama. I met with Young and his coach back in April 2021 when he was a sophomore and got to speak with him. And Alabama was the school that was right up there. He's always had praise for them. That has never subsided, his interest in the program. So when looking at his recruitment, although it's been kind of unpredictable at times, Alabama has been the constant, and he enjoyed his visit this past weekend, and I believe that the Crimson Tide will ultimately land him. Now, is it this summer? I don't know. Maybe he waits until the Under Armour All-American game in January to make that decision. That's a big announcement. Kind of ups the brand a little bit, and that's obviously something that's important for kids, especially in the day of NIL. But yeah, I believe Alabama is sitting in a really good spot with Young as well.
Yeah, I do too. And you mentioned NIL, and I don't want to go too far, but how much has that? We all know it's changed recruiting, but
Yes.
from somebody that's in the industry every day, how much has it really changed the recruiting process?
If you ask the parents, they say it doesn't matter that much to them at all. If you ask the kids, they say the exact same thing, but you kind of, that's not the case. Of course not. Like if you were a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid and you have an opportunity to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, why not take advantage of it now, especially in a sport like football, where you can be injured from one play to the next. The chances of you being injured are seemingly higher compared to other sports. So take advantage of it now while you can, capitalize on your brand. And that's something that young kids are starting to do, and it's starting to play a role. Alabama, I know, had carved out a certain section of time. I don't know exactly how long it was, but they did have an NIL presentation, just kind of outlining some of those same things that you've heard Nick Saban talk about before with the media. Everyone's going to have the same opportunities when they get on campus, and it's kind of up to you to determine your value based on your play and what you end up doing. So, look, Nick Saban has been controversial for some people, but on the other hand, he kind of is speaking the truth when it comes to NIL and how it would change the college recruiting, and the how it ultimately operates compared to how it operated before. So yeah, NIL is definitely playing a big role for some major commitments. Maybe not so much for like an Archie Manning, but it
Right.
definitely is for other prospects.
Well, you mentioned Arch Manning, and of course, he was on campus this last weekend as well, along with Alabama commit Eli Holstein.
Yeah.
How did those visits go? And with Eli committed, how does that change Arch's recruiting and just kind of that entire process there with those two quarterbacks?
Yeah, so Archer's visit wasn't necessarily something where like he came away blown away by the presentation, because of course he's been on campus multiple times before. He's been to a game. He went in June 2021. He most recently visited in April. So this is more so about getting to know the coaches, the players, getting to know them even more than he had before, and getting to see the program in that kind of in-depth 3-day visit. I'm still trying to catch up with his head coach Nelson Stewart, but from the little that I've heard, it seemed like he had a good time. The emphasis wasn't really too much on recruiting for him. When he was talking about players, he was just more so talking about life and everything that's been going on with them and their lives. And obviously, recruiting takes up a big portion of that, but he made sure to stay away from that. Eli Holstein, he had a message for the offensive linemen that were on campus, the 4 big-time offensive linemen. He said, "Look, I'm prioritizing you all, and then I'm going after the skill position guys," which is really interesting. That's kind of mature of him, because sometimes you think that these quarterbacks want to get caught up in the flashiness of the star wide receiver, the star running back who can catch out the backfield. He's like, no, I need to be protected up front. That was kind of his message to Wilkin Formby, Olaus Allen. So that was interesting to hear. And how does this affect Arch Manning's recruitment? It's interesting because Arch isn't necessarily a typical recruit. What he values is kind of a little bit different than what other prospects in the past of his caliber may have valued. When I talk with his coach, the first things he tells me about when he goes on these visits is he wants to see how the student life is like. He wants to talk to the teachers. He wants to talk to the janitors. He wants to talk to everybody that's around the school, around the program. He wants to talk to. He also wants to know about strength and conditioning. So when asked that question, I don't think it's going to change his recruitment that much and Alabama's pursuit of him that much, because he values more things than the football side of his college experience. But of course, Eli Holstein being in the class definitely could change some things. What if Arch Manning decides to commit and then Eli Holstein says, no, I won't be in a class with Arch Manning? We don't know. At the end of the day, these are going to be their decisions. But Arch Manning probably wouldn't have taken an official visit to Alabama if he still wasn't seriously considering them, despite Holstein's commitment.
Right. Well, now that we've kind of wrapped up last weekend's visits and other prospects, just real quick before we let you go, talk about the upcoming visits this weekend and kind of what we can expect from this upcoming weekend.
Big news from last weekend: Cormani McClain, the top cornerback in the country, he's going to be officially visiting Alabama this weekend. That's huge for the Crimson Tide, because I had reached out to members of his camp over the past few weeks, and I just wasn't getting much out of him and out of his camp. And it really felt like maybe he just would decide to commit to Florida and kind of do it on the low and not take a visit to Alabama, which would have obviously been the worst case scenario. Now Alabama's going to get a chance to get him on campus, show him and his mom once again, why they're a school that's in that kind of top 2, top 3 area for him. You expect development, NFL production, stability of the program to be emphasized, because looking at Florida, that's a program that has struggled. They haven't been able to return to the heights of Urban Meyer in those 2 national championships in 06 and 08. They have a new head coach. They're rebuilding. Nick Saban and his staff can say, guess what? We've won 6 national championships. We're the favorite to win a 7th this upcoming year. We're perennial contenders. We also developed defensive backs, and we're not too far away from you. It's not like Alabama is USC or Oregon. It's fairly close. So yeah, that's a big time visit coming up. And you also got this guy named Caleb Downs, who's only the top safety in the nation. So he's going to be in town too. He's going to be officially visiting Ohio State the weekend after. Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia are the top 3 there. And with a decision coming in July, that's going to be a huge trip for him too. Alabama does not feel they're out of that one. Samson Okunlola, he was a recent addition to this visitors list. Got an offer back in May, but he has Alabama in his top 9. He's taken an official visit there. It seems like the Crimson Tide have really made up some ground here, and I'm interested to hear the returns. And then Shelton Sampson out of Louisiana. Alabama, LSU, and Florida State are the 3 schools we're hearing the most about Sampson. So once again, interested to see how this one goes, and we want to hear what his decision timeline ultimately ends up being. If it's closer to the season, it probably favors LSU. The longer it drags out, maybe more so Alabama. As they potentially get into the championship hunt. And yeah, they've got a few other official visitors. One starting tomorrow, and JUCO wideout Malik Benson. They've also got Makari Vickers coming. His visit starts on Thursday. And they got Justice Haynes, Jelani Thurman, Ronan Hannafin out of Massachusetts, and Damari Brown, 4-star cornerback out of South Florida. So just another talented weekend here, 4 5-stars. So that means in 2 straight weekends, Alabama's gotten 9 5-stars and like 5 guys who are at the top of their position in this class. Just insane production. And it goes to show how much June has kind of changed. June is now the official visit month, and it's going to determine a lot of recruitments.
You mentioned real quick the JUCO wide receiver. I don't think enough people are talking about him. I think he is a special talent.
He is absolutely special. Malik Benson can play inside or outside. He's a smooth route runner. His double moves are incredible. He's going to be able to take the top off of defense. He can just kind of do anything that you want him to do on the football field. You can line him up inside or outside, and he's the kind of player that I think should be prioritized. In terms of wide receiver. he would be the biggest get for Alabama in this cycle, just because he'll have 2 years of experience under his belt at Hutchinson Community College. And by the way, he broke the Hutchinson CC school record for receiving yards in his freshman season. This is a very
Wow.
talented kid, and he's being recruited by Georgia, Oregon, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama. There's a reason why. So he would be. I think he would have the most impact for Alabama if in terms of any 2023 receiver commit they get, just in
Yeah.
terms of his experience and the talent that he brings to the table.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really high on him. I think he would be a fantastic get. I got one last question before I let you run out of here. I know you're super busy, and I can't let you cheat. Besides Peter Woods, who do you think could be the next commitment for Alabama in this class?
Oh, that's a good one, actually. That is a really good one. Man, that's tough because Peter is the guy that, in my opinion, out of all their targets, is the closest lock, if you can say that.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe it's Kelby Collins. He visited on Monday. He's taking some official visits now. And what's interesting about him is that he's got an official visit date to Alabama December 9th, I believe. It's like the weekend before his signing period, which is typically, it typically indicates like a prospect who is committed to a program already or is going to commit to a program. That last setting an official visit that close to signing period is kind of indicative of that. So maybe it's Kelby Collins. Yeah, I think that may be my choice. I might have to look. I might have to look through the list again. Malik Benson could be one as well, just because he takes his last official visit to Georgia June 17th. He told me he wants to have that commitment in July, so maybe it's then. I would kind of be surprised if they get in a commitment like right after a kid officially visits. I think you're going to see a lot of 4th of July commitments, a lot of commitments in that early to mid July, maybe late July, that time period. But yeah, Malik could be another one.
Hey, that's great. Great information, Joseph. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Before we head out, let everybody know how they can follow you. I'm sure every Alabama fan's already following you and keeping up with you there on 3.
Stacey, thank you so much for having me on today. You can follow me on Twitter at Joseph A. Hastings. I've actually been messaging someone about whose Twitter handle is Joseph Hastings. I've been trying to get that from him. I'm willing to pay a good price, but it's Joseph A. Hastings for now. You can follow me there. You can follow our content on BamaOn3.com. Check out the recruiting coverage that we have. I'm posting 5 things we learned about Alabama recruiting in the second week of June tonight, so you can read that. Nice little feature piece there. And that's pretty much where you can follow me. If you want to add me on Instagram, sure, it's the same thing at Joseph A. Hastings, but I probably may not follow back. I don't use it that much.
All right. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you taking time. And hopefully we can do this again real soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Stacey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.